So let's start. So today's topic is sieve of Eratosthenes and integer factorization. So my name, those of you who don't know me, my name is Harshvardhan Goenka. I go by username Harsh639 on Codeforces. Uh, so am I audible or there are any issues?
No, you are audible.
Okay, so let's start with the problem. Basically, after from this only we will understand how does sieve work. So the problem statement of today is you are given n integers and display whether they are prime or not for each of them, and n varies from means number of integers from for which you have to check whether they are prime or not is of range 10 to the power 6, and numbers also are in the range 10 to the power 6. So what are prime numbers? Prime numbers are those numbers who don't have any other factors other than 1 and itself. They don't have any other factor, and but 1 is not a prime number. So I guess everybody knows this. So how will be our sample input output? Five integers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 is not a prime, 2 is the prime, 3 is a prime, 4 is not again not a prime, so no, and 5 is a prime, so yes. So any idea how will go means any brute force what how you will check it? You can unmute yourself and say what you think, whatever comes to your mind.
So by square root method,
So what do you mean by square root method? Can you explain it?
we will start from I equal to 2 and then keep on incrementing until the square root of n and check whether n is divisible by I or not. If it is divisible, then it is not a prime, and if not, then it is a prime. And then we will
Yeah.
break from the.
Yeah, so this code works. So we'll come to it later. So first, let's go for with pure brute force. That is, we take n integers input from the user, then we mark that let it be a prime number. Let's assume it is true for now. Then iterate from 2 to a minus 1, ai minus 1. Basically, except 1 and itself. If there is a factor, then we mark it as false, which signifies it is not a prime number. Therefore, if check is true and ai is not equal to 1, then we display yes, otherwise it is no. So the time complexity of this code is basically n into max of ai. So that is about 1e8 operations, so 1e12 operations. And as we know that in 1 second we can go at max 1e8 operations, so this clearly does not seem to me be a good idea. So moving on to the idea which just somebody said, that is also not before that, one more idea we have. Let's improve it by a constant factors. So at between ai by 2 plus 1 to ai minus 1, we are sure that there are no factors of the number ai. So we just iterate from 2 to ai by 2. So my complexity comes out to be n into ai by 2, max of ai by 2. But this is a constant improvisation. So basically it will now run in in 1e11 operations. But it is not a good improvement so that we get an accepted solution. It would still give a time limit exceeded. So we need to improve it, and we will go for the one solution which somebody said just now, that we will go from 2 to square root ai and check if there is a factor of it. So why does this idea works? So the reason being is that, let's say ai, I write ai to be x into y. So let's say I assume x to be something less than equal to root ai, square root ai. Then y will come out to be ai by x. So what I can say is y is greater than equal to root ai. So for every factor of ai which is greater than square root ai, there also exists a complementary factor which is less than equal to square root ai. To understand it better, you may think it as let's say for 4, not let's take some other number, let it be 14. So for 14, which is greater than equal to root ai, there exists a less than equal to x term, that is 1. Then another factor of it is 7. For that, there exists another x, that is 2. So we know that for every factor that is greater than equal to root ai, there is a factor which is less than equal to root ai, that is 2. So we just need to iterate from 2 to root ai and check if there is a factor of the number or not. So we will go from basically we take the user input of the number, then iterate from 2 to ai. So here you could have written it as j less than equal to square root ai instead of using j star j less than equal to ai. But it is found out that means it is often observed that this runs bit faster than this, but you can use also this if you want. But I prefer to use this in competitive programming, and you iterate over them. If there is a factor, then I mark it as false. So what's the time complexity of this code? If means how many maximum operations it would be running? Anyone?
O of n root n.
O of not n root n, basically n root max of ai. O of n. In this case, it comes out to be O of n root n itself, but it would be O of n root max of ai. So we observe that it comes out to be about 1e9 operations. So this will still give time limit exceeded, but it is a good method that, and you should know it, that it's known as square root method. So you should know it. So we need to improvise it further. So any ideas how can we improve the complexity further?
As we know that only 2 is an even prime, so we can, after checking with 2, we can check only with odd numbers. Means j equal to 3 and j equal to j plus 2.
But you means it would still give a TLE because you are still checking. Suppose ki 1e6 minus 1 is the odd number. Suppose I give all means all the n means n values are my 1e6 minus 1. So my this loop is still running about square root 1e6 minus 1 into 1e6 times. So it is not an improvisation, means it improves by a constant factor of by 2 because you are not checking for even numbers, but it is not a good improvisation because it would decrease to 5e8 operations, but it would not be a good improvisation. Anyone else who want to try? You can say whatever comes to your mind. So if you're not getting an idea, so let's see what we can do. So before starting, before going through the code, let me give you an intuition. Suppose if x is a prime number, we can say that 2x, 3x, 4x cannot be a prime number. It is easy to see because there will be another factor. Suppose 2x, for 2x, 2 will be a factor which is less than 2x and greater than 1, but is still a factor. Similarly for all those things. So it is unnecessary for me to check for this range of numbers to check whether a prime. When I get a prime, I will mark all its multiples as composite numbers. So everybody got this? How every other multiple of x comes out to be a composite number? Hello.
Yes.
So now, so basically what I'm saying is that as soon as I find there is a prime number, I'll mark all its multiple as false and not iterate on them. I'll basically skip. And one more thing to observe is that my AI is within a small range of 1e6. So I can pre-calculate rather than calculating while taking user input. I can pre-calculate. Pre-calculation means I calculate for all the values that user can enter and then use them while just input. I just need to display, check whether it is a prime or not. That will take O of 1 time. So I will do pre-calculation. So how I am doing the pre-calculation? So first of all, don't see the code. First what we will do, let's iterate from 2, let's initially mark all the numbers from 2 to n as prime numbers. Then we come to 2, then we iterate from 2 to n. If while we come to I, if it has not been marked as composite till now, which means that there has not been any other prime or a factor that divides it, so it is a prime number. I can say that surely. So so it is a prime number. So if it is a prime number, then what I will do, I'll mark all its multiples as a composite number. So like first I come for 2, then I'll mark 4, 6, 8, and till up to n, all its factor as a composite number. Then similarly, I'll come to 3. 3 has not been marked as composite, so it is a prime. So I'll mark all its factors 6, 9, 6, 9, and 12. So this goes on like this. But you can see that I am already marked 6 as composite. I'm again marking it as a composite number. So can you think of a way I am sure that I can skip this number 6? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, because all the numbers.
Any one of you can.
All the numbers before that number, we have already means if the number is 4, then 4 into 3 and 4 into 2 we have already marked as composite. So we can directly begin from 4 into 4.
No, in this case it should be 3 into 3. No, like I've already marked 3 into 2.
I am telling for and 4 wala number.
But 4 is a composite. Okay, so yes, he got the idea. So basically, what I am saying is that for 2 into I up to I minus 1 into I, they have already been marked as a composite number. So we don't need to mark it again. We need to start from I into I. So is everybody understood why we need to start from I into I, not from 2 into I to I minus 1 I into I?
Yes.
Okay, so one more thing to observe in the code is that like in previous code, you can see here I used int, and here in this code I am using long. While means basically for int I equal to 2 to n, I'm iterating if the number is prime and has not been marked composite yet, so it is surely a prime. So I'll iterate all its multiples from I into I up to n, and each time basically I'm increasing it by I. So why have used long instead of int? Can anybody say what is the reason?
Int can store only till 1e9.
Not up to 1e9. Int can store up to something approximately 2e9. So when it is suppose let's say about prime number close to 1e6, this would j would become 1e12. So if we would have kept it as integer, it would have caused overflow and the number would have become negative or any other garbage value. So it is so you must be careful where to use long and where to use int. So is the idea of this sieve clear? Basically, this is called the sieve array, where we initially mark all the numbers as prime, and slowly we remove the composites number and iterate over all the multiples of the prime numbers. So is this idea clear to everyone?
Why can't we run I only till root n, because ultimately j will has to be less than n only.
I till root n, I could not.
Means in the means where you are writing long I equal to I less than equal to n I plus, then again j equal to I into I, j less than equal to n.
Okay, yes, that can be done. What I understood. What he's saying is that I run this portion of the loop means basically is prime I only if I is less than equal to square root n. Is this what you meant?
Yes, I mean that we need to run only square root n, the ith loop.
So this he's saying that we will run only this portion of code only when I is less than equal to square root n. So yeah, yes, you can do that also. But if you don't do that, you can just means you have to put another an extra condition using and. So that also works perfectly fine. And for the time complexity of this code, it is difficult to calculate it. Although there are proof on net. So the time complexity of this code comes out to be O of n log n. So it is a nice improvisation. Basically, this pre-calculation comes out to be n log n, and we have to answer n queries. So basically, let it be small n. I guess it should be small n. So my time complexity basically comes out to be O of n log n. So that is approximately, I think, of 1e6 or 1e means it is of order 1e6 operations only. So it will give an AC easily. So is the idea clear to everyone?
If there was something, means if the maximum value of AI and n wasn't same, so then it would have been n log of AI, means maximum of AI.
Yeah, basically here n is I have kept here n I have kept to be max of AI only.
Okay.
Here
Okay,
n is
yes.
basically max of AI only.
Okay.
So one more thing that this n perfectly works fine for up to n equal to 1e7. For 1e7, this code took approximately 0.07 seconds. The constant attached to it is very small, so it took 0.07 seconds as far as I remember. So let's move on to the second problem of the day, that is prime factorization of a number. So you might have studied in JEE that prime factorization before also, means you are given n numbers whose input are AI, so 2, 32, 12, and you write the means you have to display the number of number of number of values in prime factors in its prime factorization and display them. Like for 2, it comes out to be 2 itself. For 32, 2 into 2 into 2 into up to 5 times. And for 12, it comes out to be 2 into 2 into 3. So you have to basically display its number of variables and all of its factors, prime factors. So any idea? You can think for 1 or 2 minutes, and if you have an idea, you can unmute yourself and say the idea.
We can you can run a loop and can divide the number first divide the number by 2 till we will keep dividing till the number gives the remainder 0, and if the remainder is non-zero, then we'll increment and divide the number by 3, and this way we can do.
Up to what number will go?
We can run, I think we can run till the loop till the quotient gets 1. We can run an infinite loop and we'll break out of the loop till when the quotient will get 1.
I think
You were
running
very
till
pretty
root
close.
n time
Yes.
times is sufficient.
Yes, till root n it comes out to be sufficient. Not root n also. Yes, if you keep updating, yes, root n is sufficient. So very good that you got the idea. So n equal to 1e5, 1e3. Yes, that might work. Yes, that works in this case because constraints are pretty light in this case. So if the constants would have been pretty a bit higher, then it would have given a TLE or something like that. But in this case, it works perfectly fine, I think. So what we can do, what their idea actually means for those who could not get. So basically, we are iterating we take the user input, the AI, whose prime factors we need to display. After that, we iterate from 2 to square root AI. And if it is divisible by 2, I keep on dividing it by 2 until there are no factors of 2 left. Like for 32, first this loop will run 32 is divisible by 2, then it will move to 16, then 8, then 4, then 2, then 1. And I'll pushing my prime factors into a vector which I have declared. And I guess you might have studied vectors in the basic SQL class. So you will keep on pushing the prime factors and you will go till square root AI. But one thing you need to check is that if still after coming out of this loop, there is a AI still greater than 1, then I can say that AI is a prime number. Basically, AI is a prime number and I will push it into the prime factorization. And one more thing we can say that there can be at max one prime factor greater than 2 square root AI. One prime factor x greater than square root AI. Anyone can say what is the reason that there can be only at most one prime factor greater than square root AI? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
I mean, if both of them are larger than square root of AI, then the number will become larger than AI itself.
Yes. So there can be at most one factor that is greater. Like for if you do prime factorization of 2, basically j star j would be 4, that is greater than 2. So it will not run a loop, single loop. So it has not been yet factorized. So if AI is greater than 1, that is 2, I'll push the answer into 2 and then I will display it here. So this takes sort of about 1e5 into square root AI, that is 1e3, 1e8 operations. 1e8 operations it takes. But if AI was like not there is a better method in which the number of operations are pretty less. Like 1e8 operations is just on a verge of 1 second. So if your implementation is not that good or bit means the constant is very high, it can show DLE. So better and a faster way is using using the idea of sieve, sort of sieve. You need to use sieve in this problem. So anyone can think of an idea how we can use sieve in this problem to compute fast factorization. Like basically, if I with the pre-computation, if I have given AI in about log of AI time, I can find out its factorization.
If we find a prime number, then we can divide all the elements of the array by that number, and then we can push the that prime factor into the corresponding prime factorization vector.
Yes, you were pretty close. Not only the prime factor, but we will also we will find its smallest prime factor for each number. There's a reason behind that because it comes out to be basically we'll calculate smallest prime factor for each I. We'll pre-calculate this thing, and how we'll use it in factorization, that I will show it to you later. So similarly, initially I marked all the number as primes. So 0, basically 0 signifies here that it is a prime number. So if it has come to the number I and it is still not been marked by any other number, means there is no small, basically SPF stores the smallest prime factor of SPF of I stores smallest prime factor of I, smallest prime factor of I. Like for in case of 4 it is 2, in case of 14 it will be 2. So if it has not been marked, like for in the case of 2, there are no prime factors which are less than which are a divisor of 2. So it is a prime number. So its smallest prime factor will be itself 2. So I mark here SPF of I equal to I, and I maintain a prime, basically a vector which stores all the prime numbers up to n. So I push that prime in, basically I push that prime into this array. Basically I push I into this array. Now, irrespective whether I was a prime or not, I will iterate in j equal to 0, j less than prime dot size. Basically I'm iterating over this array, and prime of j is less than equal to SPF of I. So basically, what is SPF of I? If prime of okay, we'll understand why is that condition important. So I am basically calculating the smallest prime factor of I into prime of j, means the jth prime number that is present in the array. So if that is less than equal to n, reason being we are calculating only up to n, so this condition is important. So this condition is important because prime of j is less than equal to SPF of I. Because if this condition does not hold true, then SPF of I star prime of j would have been less than prime of j itself. Hello. Hello. Am I audible to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me show you through iterations what I'm doing. So let's calculate it for till 20. Is there some space? So let's do the calculation here once. So let's do, or wait a minute. So let's do up till 20. So first we come to 2 has not been marked with any other smaller prime factor of it. So 2 is a prime factor. So I'll maintain a prime array here. In that I push 2. Now I will go from j equal to 0, j less than prime dot size. So is prime of j less than equal to SPF of I, which is 2 now. So basically prime of j into I will be less than, will have a prime of j as its SPF. Because what will be the SPF I into prime of j be? It will be minimum of SPF of I or minimum of SPF of prime of j. Basically SPF of prime of j is prime of j itself. So everybody understood why this comes out to be true. Hello.
Yes.
So basically it will be minimum of I'm doing this, I'm not visiting any other, basically I'm not visiting prime of j greater than SPF of I only because I want it to be of linear complexity, because I'm only visiting each number once. Because if its SPF is smaller, it would have been marked previously, like you will see now. Now I'll mark 4, wait a minute, 2, 3, 10. Let's keep it up to 10 only. So 2. Now I'll check prime of j is less than equal to SPF of I, and I of prime of j is less than equal to n, which is 10. So it holds true. So I'll mark it as 2. Now I'll move to 2, which is marked 0 now. So this is also a prime number, so it will be 3. Now I will move from in the prime factor 2 from 2. So prime of j is less than equal to SPF of I. Yes, 2 is less than equal to SPF of I. So 3 into 2, 6. 3 into 2, I'll mark it as 2. Then I'll go, now we'll move to 3. Is 3 less than equal to SPF of I, which is 3? Yes. So we'll mark 9 also as a prime number with prime of j, which is 3. Now I move to 4. SPF of I is not 0, so it is not a prime number. Now I'll move to j equal to 0. So in j equal to 0, j less than prime of prime dot size prime j. So 2 is less than equal to SPF of I. Yes, it holds true. So I'll mark 2 into 4 with 2. That is 8 with 2. So one more after that will come to 3. 3 SPF of 3 is SPF of 3 is not greater than SPF of 3 is more. Therefore, we'll not mark it and will come out. And you are observing that prime is basically sorted. We are putting the prime numbers in sorted order. So after that, we can come out of the loop. The reason we are doing checking this condition is because if we do not check this condition, because it will now visit 12 and it will would have visited
Voice
in the
is
case I
breaking.
think.
Excuse me, your voice is breaking.
Is now is my voice clear?
Right
Yes.
now it's
Hello.
clear.
Okay.
But the last you
Basically,
were explaining a lot of the times your voice is breaking by quite a lot. It
so
was
if
really
you today basically I don't have a proper internet connection. So if my voice is breaking too much, you can unmute yourself and please notify me that. So the reason we do this condition is that we want each number to be visited at most once. If you give it a dry run, basically for till n equal to 20, if you give it a dry run yourself, you will observe that each number is visited only exactly once. And the time complexity for this, it comes out to be O of n. And O of n, that is n basically is maximum of AI, 1 is 6. And then that comes out to be 6 operations. I calculate the smallest prime factor. You could have done it in O of n log n using sieve log n. You could have used sieve in this case, like basically iterating over all number and checking minimum of SPF of basically if let's move to sieve code once. So here basically while doing this thing, I could have just to be minimum of, so this would have also worked, but this would have taken n log n operations. It does not matter much, but this if you observe, this code will take O of n operations. Each number will be visited exactly once. If you give it a dry run, you will able to understand. So how do we use the smallest prime factor in this code? So we take a user input AI from the user. Then if AI is greater than 1, then there is still a prime factor which is left in AI. So I know that SPF of AI is the prime factor of AI. So I will push that back into the answer and divide AI by SPF of AI. And I'll keep on doing it till AI becomes 1. So let's take a number like 20. Its smallest prime factor is 2. So I will divide it by 2. It becomes 10 and I'll push it in my answer. I will push my answer 2. Then I'll smallest prime factor of 10 is also, so I'll divide it again by 2. Then it becomes 5. Smallest prime factor of 5 is itself 5. So 2 comma 2 comma 5. So I have got my prime factorization 2 comma 2 comma 5. And what is the time complexity of this code? So it comes out to be basically n log AI, approximately log 2 AI, because all the other prime factors are greater than 2. So we can say it is n log 2 max of AI. And basically 1 is 6. So approximately this term comes out to be 20. So you have computed your O in O of something n sort of thing. Although this n log AI, so you can do prime factorization of any number in O of n approximately. Did everyone got the idea? Hello.
Yes.
If anyone has any doubts, you can ask me. Or if you want me to visit any topic once again, I can visit it now. Hello. Hello.
Is there any specific reason why we just use the smallest prime factor method? Because I understood the method, but I'm not getting the reason why someone would think of this method.
Smallest prime factor reason. So, is there any other method which you can think of now? Means reason. It is basically the reason can be that SPF of A of I basically takes O of n. If we just go by smallest prime factor, it will take O of n operation. Basically, each number will be visited once. The only reason is that each number will be visited once exactly. While pre-calculating the smallest prime factor, each number is visited once. Like one of you said that we can calculate the prime factor, any one prime factor for each of them, and can do this thing. That would have worked, but finding that one prime factor, how will you do that? That's my question. Basically, you are saying that for 20, I could have even used 5. From 5, I would have moved to 4, and from 4 to 2 to 1. I could have done this, but how can I find randomly that 5 is a prime factor of 20? Means 20 is a 20 is a prime factor 5. Means 20 as a prime factor 5. That computation would have taken a time. So we go for smallest prime factor of each number. Did you get the idea?
Yes, I got it.
And still, if you are facing the difficulties that why each number will be exactly visited once, I will share an article with you in the chat or in the Facebook group. It is a nice article on the smallest prime factor and why each number gets visited once. You can go through that also. So that was today's class, but now we'll discuss the Codenite questions. Codenite 3.2 remaining. There were 3 questions remaining. One question I thought I am thinking not to discuss because it includes bitwise operations, which I don't think many of you will be familiar now. So let's start with the discussion. So the first question, is the question visible to everyone?
Yeah, it is visible.
So given n cards, out of which A has 0 written on it and others have 1 written on top of it, arrange the cards in such a way that no consecutive cards have 1 written on it and no group of consecutive cards having 0 written on it should have size greater than 2. So basically what it does, it that, and there can be no 2 consecutive ones. So both of these things are not, and you have to just output that is it possible to have such a configuration. You don't need to display the configuration, or you don't need to get into it, that you have to display the configuration. You just need to find is there a way, if there exists a way. So I hope many of you have attempted. So anyone who have solved this question or has a solution in his mind.
We can use the idea of PNC.
Idea of P, how?
Means that gap method which we were taught during JEE.
Everybody means
the
you can just
count the number of gaps.
Count the number of gaps.
Gaps in between. If we want to ensure that the number of ones we have should all be separated, then the number of gaps have to be filled by zeros. And the another condition which we have to ensure is when we have placed all the ones and then we have also positioned the zeros in all the right places, then the number then we'll place two zeros and then two zeros in the end as well. So number of zeros can't exceed that. So if number of ones are less than that, number of zeros are more than that, given any one of the values, then such configuration can't be made. I mean, the m and n, the number of ones and number of n's have to follow two set of constraints.
Hello.
Harsh,
Hello.
you are audible now.
Hello. Whoever was saying the solution, can you say it once more? It was due to my bad network. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I haven't solved the question, but what I think is like if the number of ones which are provided to us is n, and if we distribute all the ones, the number of gaps created between them is n minus one. So in the case where the minimum values of the minimum number of zeros which we require in this case is actually n minus one to fill the gaps between all the ones. And for the given number of n, the maximum number of zeros which we can have is when we fill all the gaps with two zeros, as well as we use zeros in the ends as well, in the beginning as well as ending. So this is the maximum number of zeros we can have. In the beginning, two zeros, in the end, two zeros. So if if the numbers of ones and zeros satisfy this condition, then we can have such a configuration. Otherwise, it's not possible.
Yeah, pretty nice. Your idea was very good. So in this question, there are two ways to go about this question. You don't need to find the arrangement. So either you can do two things. Either you can just fix the let's say there are a ones and b zeros. A are the number of ones, no. So let's fix there are a ones and find the condition on b zeros. Basically, if there are a ones, what are the minimum number of zeros and maximum number of zeros? Or we can fix the number of zeros and find the minimum and maximum number of ones that can be, and then just check if, like, if we fix a is suppose ones and b zeros, I find the minimum number of zeros, min zeros and max zero. So this b must lie between this range so that there exists a particular arrangement. So how will we do that? So as he said, for one he has already said that if we fix number of ones, then what will be the condition on b? That will come out to be basically if minimum number of zero should be a minus one, and maximum it could be 2a plus 1. So let's fix the number of zeros now. So b zeros are there. So but what we see that there can, if we group them into two groups of two, we get minimum number of ones. So let's say b, we group it into groups of two. But if it is b is an odd number, there will be b by basically group with a singleton zero, means basically a single zero will be there. So basically there will be b by 2 plus b mod 2 zeros. So the basically there will be b by 2 plus b mod 2 groups. If this would have been an even number, so there would have been four groups. So minimum number of ones will be then when I put just ones in between them, not at the extremes, only in between them. So my minimum number of ones comes out to be b by 2 plus b mod 2 minus 1. Is the idea clear? How I found the minimum number of ones? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So now maximum number of ones. Let's write down b zeros. Maximum number of ones will occur in the case when I just put ones between every zero and at the before the first zero and after the first last zero. So in that case, number of maximum number of ones could be b plus 1. So now you just need to check that a is greater than equal to this term and a is less than equal to this term. So you could have done either of the in either of the way, both would have given you an AC. So let's check it for one of the test cases. We have found out the condition. So basically A here is ones or zeros. And integers is A. It is not given or what? Basically it was, I think it was in the explanation. So let's assume in this case A was the number of ones. So 1 0 and 1 1. So you can see that there exists a possible arrangement 0 and 1 or 1 or 0. So in that case the answer will be yes. So it was the time complexity of this code is basically you can find these two minimum and maximum values in O of 1 for each test case. So your time complexity of this code comes out to be O of t, that is 1000. So it would give easily an accepted. So n on A can be could have been pretty high just to confuse the user, but it was a simple question. So let's move to the next question. As Tanmay is not here in today's class, the codes of these problems I will share you with the link of the doc. You can go through the code. If you face any issues, you can either text me or put a post on the group, Facebook group. So this is a pretty big question. So rather than reading the whole question, let me explain what does this question means. So one, there are n people which are means sitting in a circle. Let's say up to n. So initially I am at position 1. So I can make I have to make infinite moves. So in my first move, I'll move from 1 to 2. That is, I'll move by distance 1 in clockwise direction. In my second move, I'll move from 2 to 4. 2 to 4. And in my third, means basically this is the distance by which I move. In the third move, I move by distance 3. Hello. So the problem is that you can keep on going like this. Does means after finite number of moves, can I does there a solution exist that I have visited all of them? Basically till n I have visited all of them. Basically, if suppose this would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So first I'll visit 1, it is visited. Then I'll visit 2, it is marked visited. Then I'll visit 4. Then I will visit 7. Then at the seventh move, I have to move by position 4. So 8, 1, 2, 3. I'll visit 3. Then I have to move by I think I have to move by 1, 2. I have to move by 5. So I'll visit 8. So it goes on like this. So we have to show whether you have to display whether we can visit all cells or not. So has anyone solved this question? So there were two constraints where n was very less, that was 1000, and n was pretty high, that was 1e18.
I actually solved for the case where n was less than 1000.
So you can share the solution.
Like basically what I did was create an array for create a vector for 1000 numbers, and then after each, like run through an iterator for many large number of operations, and then check which number it reaches, and then if all the if it reaches that number, then I'll set the value in the array as 1, something like that. So if the array becomes 1 after a large number of operations, then then we can say yes or else no. But then it was not a correct exact solution.
So we don't need to just randomly run for a very large number. You can find a limit till you need to run. So for basically the moves are increasing. The length of the moves, at first it was 1, after which it became 2, then it became 3, and it goes on till n, after that n plus 1. So there is a nice observation here.
I think till n we have to run the loop.
No, it is not necessary. Sometimes we need to run up to 2n. The reason I'm explaining, basically, when you're moving n plus 1 distance, what is it equivalent to? Anybody?
A distance of 1.
1.
Yes. So basically, it is equivalent to distance of 1, and 2n is equivalent to n. Basically, I'm moving whatever here it is given. I'm moving basically mod of n time distance. Basically, here I will come back to its original place. So what I see it is as a 0. I am basically moving by distance 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 up, and I come to 0. So let's not assume it from 1. Assume it, we say it starts from 2, 0, 1, 2, rather means basically 0 based indexing rather than 1 based indexing. So if I'm moving by a distance, basically if at some point of my at some point if I come to the position 1 and in the next position I have to move by distance 1 itself, then it is similar to my first move. Could you understand that what I said? I said that if I come back to position 1 and in the next move I have to move x into n plus 1, then it has basically it will visit the same set of numbers that it has visited till now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have to just find this x. So when will this happen? That basically after moving x into n, I come back to 1. So it will happen when I have moved a multiple of a distance, a multiple of n. Means I have moved by a distance of multiple of n. So let's write it as n only. Means write the distances as 1, 2, 3 up to x into n. It should must come out to be a multiple of n itself. It must be equivalent to a multiple of n. So x summation of this comes out to be x into n into x into n plus 1 by 2. So when will it be a multiple of n? Anybody? Hello.
When x is even.
Yes, when x is, it means it can be possible that n into n minus 1 by 2. Immediately in n moves I come back to 1, but it is not a short I cannot say short that it will come back, because when n is even then it will be an issue. But what I can say for sure that after 2 into n moves, I will surely come back to the first position itself, at which I have to move in next move I have to move by distance 1. So I like somebody said that he iterated for a very big number and checked if it has visited all the cells. So we need to just check move for 2 into n iterations. So how will we do that? Basically, we declare an array or a vector of size n and mark all other as false. But in the first move, I have visited itself. Basically, initially I visited the first cell, so v of 0 equal to false, true. So currently, my position is CR. Currently, my position is 0. Now I have to move by distance of 1, and I have to just do 2n moves. So I'll go from I less than equal to 2n I plus plus. So the next cell which I would visit will be v of current plus I mod n. So if you don't give this mod n, it will cause try to give a segmentation fault, because it will be accessing after n. So I'll mark this position as true because I have visited this, and I'll update my current position. My current position will be updated by current plus I mod n. Mod n. So I will do I'll do this for 2n moves, and at the end I will check whether all the cells are visited or not. If visited, then I will display yes, otherwise no. So everybody got this idea? How did I solve this problem? For n equal to 1000, not for n equal to 118. Or anybody, if anyone has any doubts here, you can unmute yourself and ask the doubt. I will explain it once more. So is it clear to everyone? Okay, let's move on to n. For n less than equal to 118. So it is a pretty high constraint. So we at max we can go t into log n, because O of square root n all will give time limit exceeded. So it will give O of t log n. So how to find that for which test cases it will give? Basically, you have to just by seeing the number, you have to say whether it will be true or not. Basically, all the numbers will be visited or not. We can't do anything else. So anyone has any idea how will we do that? Or any observations? I don't need the proof. If anyone has any observations, you can discuss.
The number n should be the at 2 to the power k. Only the power of the 2. I observed that.
Yes. So yes, the solution is that the number should be of something 2 to the power k. So the reason is basically there exists a mathematical proof why it should be always 2 to the power k. For you means it's difficult for everyone to understand. I will surely share the link of how it comes out to be 2 to the power k. But while we do competitive programming, it is not necessary to always prove. You need to because in timed contests it is not possible for you to sit down and write a proof for everything. It is good that if you can prove it, because you will be sure that your solution will give an AC. But if you are not able to prove, but you can show that it is working on most of the test cases, and you are not able to find any edge cases, or you have a very strong intuition that it will give an accepted, then you must code it and submit. And how you should go about finding these observations is try to make your own test cases and give it a dry run of whatever is asked in this type of questions. This type of questions do not have any specific how to go about it. They are called ad hoc questions. So you just basically need to do good observations, or means they have proof, but it is difficult to do it in a contest situation. So for this question, what personally I did it while I was solving it, that I tried to observe it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to n equal to 10 or n equal to 15, 20. Basically, you can brute force it. Basically, you can write this 2 into n solution and check it for n up to 1000, for which numbers it is giving an yes. So you by running that brute force solution, you come to know that it gives an AC for 1. You don't need to do manually. So you get to know that it gives yes for 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. So by observing initial pattern, you can see it is a power of 2 to the power k. So without proving anything, you can just submit by solving for n less than equal to 1000. You can also solve for n less than equal to 180. So you come to know that it is a series of power of 2. So you can just check that whether it is power of 2 or not. That takes log n to the base 2 time. So is the idea clear to everyone? How means without proving we can solve for 118? If it is clear, please somebody unmute and say yes.
Yeah, it is.
So this was pretty much, there was one more question that was on bitwise operation. That was bitwise XOR. I don't think many of you might now know what actually is bitwise XOR and properties of XOR. Basically, you don't need only to know bitwise XOR. You also need to know what are the properties of bitwise XOR. So we will teach it to you in some later classes. Then I will discuss with you that problem. It is a very nice problem. But if you are still interested, you can go through that problem and study bitwise XOR properties and try to attempt that problem. And if you have any issues, then you can either text me on Teams or Facebook or post it in a group.